What's going on, guys? This is a very special episode of Big Thing. Capes and Cows will be back on Monday and then on Friday of next week. Not going to do Capes and Cows this week because of the Star Wars Celebration news. There was a big announcement with the movies. We were speculating for a while on this show whether or not which movies would be announced. There were some predicted and there were some surprises. And there were things that we had talked about on this show, Sith Council, that actually came to fruition. And we're going to be excited to talk about that. 3 new movies, 3 directors that were announced. And not only that, a timeline was announced of where these movies and shows in the future would be taking place and naming the eras. Not necessarily naming directors and projects for all of these things, but a timeline and a plan. Very different, very interesting. There's still some people rightfully a little pessimistic on whether or not a lot of this will come to fruition. I do think with the directors that were announced, this is the most likely to stick out of the projects announced, and we'll get into that for sure. Acolyte finally getting some love at the convention. And from what they said, the trailer itself played like Andor, focuses on the villains, Frozen meets Kill Bill, Skeleton Crew, the big epic event that is not only going to be a big crossover event, it's going to be a movie to end it all. Like we've been saying on this freaking show forever. So that was exciting as well, too. There's more to talk about with Mandalorian. There's more to talk about with the Ahsoka trailer. Indiana Jones, a lot of stuff to talk about on today's show. So that's what we're going to be talking about on today's episode of The Big Thing. Now, if you guys are brand new and you've never been here before, do me a favor, show a little. Hit that button. Subscribe to the channel. Get us to 100. A lot of different things going on for sure. And if you're able to, man, come see us live in person. April 28th, this month. At Flappers. If you're anywhere near, we're doing these live shows because you guys said, hey, are you going to do live shows? You can do stand-up comedy? You're going to do the live podcast? Well, yeah, we'll do it. But you got to come support it. Otherwise, we can't do it. We have 3 of them set. We want to sell them all out. So come to this one. You can get tickets at thekristianharloff.com. Then there's the one in Manhattan on June 23rd. And then the next night, June 24th, me and Ellis, Martin, and Corey from Double Toasted all doing a show. And if you're on the East Coast, you get those tickets at thekristianharloff.com. All right, so let's get into it, everybody. Big, massive Star Wars Celebration episode, day 1 in the books, and a lot was announced. It's the big thing. Let's do it. You ready? I'm ready. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. The big thing. Star Wars Celebration. Day 1. Well, we knew that there was going to be some big announcements, right? We knew there was going to get a lot of TV stuff. And then there was the big rumors that they were going to do films. Now, the films kind of closed out the end of the panel, but we're going to cover those first because it's just too big of a story. And we've been speculating it forever. And the question was, how many were they going to do? Were they going to announce any at all? And they were like, they had to because there was so much pressure from Disney to say, hey, we bought this thing and it's not been a movie since 2019. What is going on? There's people dropping out of these movies left and right, directors falling and dying off like flies. What are we doing? What's the plan? And to give credit where credit is due, I've been very, very, very critical of Kathleen Kennedy as of late. And this was a good plan that she put together so far. And I thought the announcements of the directors were good. I thought the announcement of the timeline, the way that it was done, it wasn't a full slate of movies. It was a timeline period. That is smart. That is a way to go. Well, these are the eras that we're going to be focusing on. And we'll be announcing projects throughout these eras. And here's a few of them. And I think it was brilliant that it didn't say that Taika Waititi's movie isn't happening, but they didn't announce them. Smart move for this time around. Whether you love Taika or you don't, the 3 directors that they announced and the 3 projects, unless you're just out there to hate and everything. Well, Star Wars is coming out and there's an agenda in this. I hate it because no matter how, even if I really like it, I can't talk about it. I hate it. Then you're going to make videos like that, and that's just what's going to happen. I get it. But if you really look at these announcements, because like I said, Roxy asked me yesterday, is there going to be anything that they can do that would get you, that you'd be optimistic of? And I said no, and I was wrong. I'm optimistic on this because the Mangold thing came out of nowhere. Jeff Snyder accurately predicted yesterday that Dave Filoni would be announced, and he was right. So credit to the insider, Jeff Snyder, for getting that scoop right. And I don't think it was a big spoiler. I think it was the fact that he put it out there. It made sense, but it was the announcement of what exactly was announced, which was the topper. Now, the rumor. Let's just go through the panel in general, right? The movie portion of the panel. All right. So the first thing Kathleen Kennedy does is this timeline, right? So the Dawn of the Jedi, which is ultimately where James Mangold is playing, and it is. And again, if you've been following this show, we have been talking about this on Sith Council. We just want them to go back and show the formation of the first Jedi and how it all went down, because Benioff and Weiss were supposed to do that, Game of Thrones guys, and it was canceled. And that was the rumors, that they were going to do the formation of the Jedi. Well, apparently Lucasfilm really still loved that idea and that plan, because they got James Mangold, who just did Indiana Jones for them. So clearly they're very happy with him. The Logan stuff, the idea that they said is this kind of a biblical, kind of spiritual thing. It's probably the beginning of the Jedi to the beginning of the philosophy of the Jedi to the beginning of the dark side, I would assume. But the Dawn of the Jedi and starting that off there is great. Then the Old Republic, showing that they are not ignoring the Old Republic. They're going to play inside the Old Republic, getting that remake of the game, surely. But maybe there's some shows that are going to be announced inside of there. Maybe they're going to play around, and maybe they're going to see, excuse me, of how that the High Republic Acolyte show does, because of the fact that they're focusing on villains. If that's the case, then they maybe can play a little bit more in the Old Republic and really start to play around in that era. So they're not ignoring the Old Republic; they are paying attention to it, and it's right around that era of right after the Dawn of the Jedi. Then the High Republic. We know that we're playing with the High Republic with the Acolyte, and that's the end of it. But is there going to be some more stuff? We know that there's a game that's coming out inside of it, and this is the timeline period in general. Then the Fall of the Jedi, that's around the same time of the prequel era, obviously, and Revenge of the Sith, and then Rise of the Empire. That's the time that we know really well in the OT. The Age of the Rebellion. That's right around the time of the Return of the Jedi, and then you get the New Republic, the Rise of the First Order, and then the New Jedi Order, which is obviously this movie that is now starring Daisy Ridley. So by doing this up top, it sets, and like I said, they essentially announced a slate, but not really. Minus those 3 movies, they said, here's our timeline. We're going to put shows out, we're going to put movies out, we're going to put games out, and they all fall into this part of our timeline. Now, we, as Star Wars fans, we all kind of knew the timeline, but to officially kind of announce them and say, okay, well, this one, you remember we talked about the Old Republic, well, this is going to be the Darth Bane show that falls inside of that era. I'm not saying that there's Darth Bane show, just using as an example. And then by setting all these things up, and also it allows them as well, if there's certain movies or shows that don't do very well, and they're like, look, this era is not working as much as we kind of wanted it to, so let's take a break from that era. Let's start playing a little bit more in the New Republic. Let's start playing a little bit more in this era. Because obviously Filoni's and Favreau's universe takes place in the kind of Rise of the Rebellion, New Republic, Rise of the First Order type era. And we got a lot of information from that era, obviously at Star Wars Celebration with Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew, and so much news that came out. This is, again, credit where credit is due. This was probably one of the best night ones of Celebration in terms of news in a very long time. Like last year, we had all these expectations, and ideas of what we hoped they would do, and all those expectations and ideas came to fruition today. They mapped it out. They took their time, and it seems like for the first time they have an actual plan. Now, skeptics are absolutely right to say, well, how do we know James Mangold isn't going to drop out? How do we know Chinoy's not going to drop out? Well, we know Filoni's not going to drop out. Filoni's pretty much a sure bet. I think Mangold's a sure bet, to be honest, because they already have confidence in him with what he's done with Indiana Jones, clearly. He's got that type of reputation where they're not going to be looking over his shoulder every 5 seconds and kind of leading him down. And the era that he's playing in there's not a ton of expectations as far as, well, this character needs to do that because they've done that in the past. And this character, it's like, no, this is the formation of the Jedi. This is the beginning of it all. This is the setup to the religion in general. And he gets to play there. So this is a really smart move for them to do. So I think Mangold is going to happen, especially because he's already got a working relationship with them. And if he had a bad experience working with Kathleen Kennedy and working with Lucasfilm, I think he would have said, the hell with this. I think it was the opposite. I think he had a good time. I think that probably during that time, they're like, hey, would you ever want to do a Star Wars project? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, well, look, we had this thing in the works. There are a couple different projects, but one of the things in the works was this thing that Benioff and Weiss had developed about the formation of the Jedi. And so, oh, that sounds interesting. Let me look at that. And again, this is all speculation, but you see things kind of happen that way. And I think that's exactly what happened. As far as, well, let me kind of break down how after that whole thing happened with the timeline. Let's kind of go in chronological order here inside of that, the announcements. All right, so after that, that's when they bring in the first person they actually brought in right after the timeline was Dave Filoni. Filoni was the first one that they brought in. And Filoni, they said he's going to be directing a film serving as the culminating event of all the shows tied to The Mandalorian. Now, if you've been watching me long enough, this has been something I have been crossing my fingers, hoping for. Now, I've said that at the investors meeting in 2020, Kathleen Kennedy said that there would be a crossover event that tied everything together. She said that inside of the event, but everyone just assumed it would be like a Disney Plus type of thing. I have been hoping, crossing my fingers, and I've said, and I've seen people cut out portions of the show where I've said this, and what I always thought would be the way to go is after you've set up all these shows like Mandalorian, Skeleton Crew, Ahsoka, and you put it all together and you had people kind of watching Boba Fett, and you had all these people watching the shows and getting involved with the characters on Disney Plus, that when you're going to finally end this thing, you do it similar to what Rogue One is essentially to Andor, right? And we'll talk about Andor also, but it's the big kind of series finale, but it's in the theater. And that's what they're doing. And I've been hoping for that. I have been crossing my fingers for that. And that's exactly what is happening. And I love this idea because Filoni is so tied into it overall. He gets to finally do what he's probably been dreaming of forever. And that's I remember when I asked him, I saw him at Star Wars Celebration. What the hell was it? Was it Orlando? I think it was outside of Orlando. We were at some restaurant. He was standing outside, and I went up to him and I started talking to him about it. I said, when are they going to let you direct a film, man? He's like, hey, keep saying it and hope it happens, because he really wants to do it. And now with all this stuff that he's got and looking at, and that was before, I mean, he's always had, it was when he was really diving deep into Rebels and everything back then, but now he's got the fans really behind him to want to do the film. And I think that he's kind of stepped it up a lot, and they know that he's got the philosophies of Star Wars more so than anybody in that company. So to give him a movie after you tie all this together, and then when you see what that Ahsoka trailer is doing, it really gives you an insight. And they threw that line in there on purpose in the Ahsoka trailer of Heir to the Empire, which is, of course, a reference to the Timothy Zahn novels. And Filoni was a fan of those novels, and Filoni was a fan of Thrawn, obviously, and he's the one who resurrected Thrawn and put him into Rebels. So I think we tie into all this. And it's going to start to really play, and Thrawn is going to start to play as like that Thanos type character, and we're going to start to set that up. I think from what they say in the end of this season of Mandalorian, then playing into Ahsoka, then playing into Skeleton Crew, which then starts to play into more of these stories that end in this film by Dave Filoni. Now the question is, when is this film going to be announced, or not announced, excuse me, slated for what year? Now, even though he was the first one brought out, I don't think his film's going first. I think his film is probably going to hit somewhere in 2027, if I was to guess, because 2025 looks like when we're going to get our first movie, and that's going to be the one we're going to talk about in a second. But I would guess that 2027 is around the time that we get the Filoni movie, because that'll give you enough time to set up for Mandalorian, set up for Skeleton Crew, set up with Ahsoka, which again, they hinted at like a second season. So you can set up all the story kind of leading into it, where you look at all of these shows as essentially the same show, and each one is a different season, and it all leads up to this movie that he's going to do. And it might even be 2028, but it gives you enough time to set it up. Now, I think that they do need to pull it together a little bit more and hopefully the next 2 episodes of Mandalorian starts to tell this story, so they can start telling this story. Ahsoka seems to have a clear-cut story from the trailer, and it seems to be really focused in on it, and it seems darker, and so that's going to be very interesting. And I think a very smart move to give Filoni a movie and to play in a universe that he already knows. And I think one of the things I think that they're going to do, I know it sounds crazy, and I know people might reject it, but if you watched Rebels, Filoni plays with the world between worlds, which is essentially the only way that they really did time travel in Star Wars. Now, I know every time you say time travel now, and I've mentioned this before, time travel in Star Wars, if you think about it, out of all this stuff, whether it's Avengers and DC or Marvel, DC, and all this stuff, Star Wars would make the most sense to do time travel because of the way that time and space work. So there could be a way with the technology to make it. I mean, they do it in Rebels. It's just a problem that everybody does it now. They're like, oh, here you go. It's kind of lazy. They need time travel to do it. And I get it. But I think they're going to explore time travel. I think they're going to explore alternate universes. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Luke Skywalker that we saw in Mandalorian and Boba Fett is a very different Luke Skywalker than we get in the sequel trilogy. Now, I could be wrong, but I just feel that they're going to do some stuff inside of this show that plays with the world between worlds. We'll see. I don't know. But wasn't the only announcement. Right after they announced Filoni, they bring out Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, who we knew was going to be directing. There's been tons of, not rumors and then kind of confirmation, but she, of course, directed a lot of Ms. Marvel and originally was paired with Damon Lindelof. Now, they didn't mention Brian Knight, I believe, who did Peaky Blinders. They didn't mention him, but they were just kind of focusing on the directors. But they did confirm that Chinoy will be directing a new film, which is going to be set in a new era, which is the new Jedi Order. Daisy Ridley is going to return as Rise Skywalker in a story that is set 15 years after the Battle of Exegol. Now, a lot of these things were rumored, speculated, and if you remember, Daisy Ridley came into Lucasfilm a little while ago, and internet went ablaze. Like, why is she there? She tweeted out that she was going to be there. There was kind of speculation that she was going to be in this movie. I think Snyder got thrown off the track because Snyder was like, I'm pretty sure she's going to be in this Lindelof movie. And then he had said, well, I heard that she's not going to be in this movie. But he was right the first time around. And it looks like she is in this movie. Well, not looks like. She was announced that she is in this movie. And she came out and the audience lost it. And it's what I loved about this story is that they're going to actually focus on building the Jedi Order. Now, what I hope they don't do at all is when she's building the new Jedi Order is that one of her students takes down the whole order and then she's the last one and there's only 2 of them again. It's like, let's focus on the whole freaking order. Let's have an order. If someone happens to go to the dark side and starts playing around in the dark arts, and there's fine. That's always been something. But let's not do another rehash and retelling of a rogue student who takes down the whole order again, and it never can work. Let's have it. Let's see what the Jedi Order looks like, and that's why it's called that. So I'm very doubtful that that's going to happen. That the same kind of beats repeat itself. I think that this is ultimately going to be them kind of doing a redo and a reset, because it takes place 15 years, and it's going to give. I mean, if you look, I really love what Chinoy did for Ms. Marvel, because what I loved about that show was that it was more about the relationships inside. And yes, superhero stuff was there, and it was relevant, and there was a lot of it. It wasn't the focus. The focus was the family. The focus was the character. The focus was building character and building emotionally attached characters. And I hope that that's exactly what happens inside of this. And we already have an attachment to Rey. We already have attachment to Daisy Ridley. So building up new students, the new order. What's the government like at this point? There'll be some cameos, I'm sure, from people inside of it, and it's a way to redeem. It's essentially the fourth movie in the new trilogy, but it's the new movies. It's essentially it really is, but it's just kind of a spin-off outside of it, and there's a way to redeem it with the fans. So it's got promise if handled correctly, and we don't know what the full story is, but that will probably be the first movie, and that'll probably be 2025, if I was to guess, because it doesn't seem like Mangold will turn that around that fast. But who knows? Who knows? And here's and speaking of Mangold, this was the big surprise. Nobody kind of knew this was going to happen, but actually, and Mangold was actually revealed second, and Mangold comes out and they said he's directing a new film in a new era, Dawn of the Jedi, the very distant past of the Star Wars universe, and the project is described as a biblical epic and will explore the origins of the Jedi Order. And I'm reading this. This is the breakdown that came from Star Wars Newsnet, by the way. So Mangold doing this is absolutely fantastic. I love James Mangold. I love Ford versus Ferrari. It's one of my favorite movies from him that he's done. It was just again. That and Logan and Copland, and the way that he doesn't just focus on, and you looked at the Indiana Jones trailer. That Indiana Jones trailer has the most consistent tone to the first and the third Indiana Jones, but yet still has that Mangold flair to it. And that's what you're going to get, because this is what is so important about this particular movie, is that it is really setting up an era and setting up the Jedi philosophy and the word of the biblical, and setting up the religion, and setting up the ideas behind it, and setting up what ultimately becomes the Old Republic. It's exploring a time outside of the Skywalker portion. Now, the Ridley's movie still explores that, but again, 15 years later, and can do other things. Filoni's movie still plays inside of that era, but this starts to set up things that we've been waiting for a while, and that's this idea of how the Jedi began, how the Jedi were discovered, how the Sith ultimately began, I would assume, and then leading into movies and TV shows into the Old Republic. This is a good plan if it's going down this way. So yeah, and Mangold's movie goes back to the Dawn of the Jedi. Filoni's going to go in the New Republic and close out the interconnected stories. And then, yeah, obviously, then we get that movie from Chinoy, which sets at the end of the 15 years after. So the way that they set this up was so interesting. Now, going back into the Old Republic, they said that beyond the Knights of the Old Republic game, they are going to start to mine that age of the Star Wars mythos at some point. Now, the question also is this: what are they going to do with Star Wars releases, right? Now, we haven't gotten a movie since 2019. Are we going to go 2025, 2027, 2029? Or are they going to start, looking at Sean Levy and say, okay, we have the movie, Sean, coming out in 2025. We want yours to be 2026. We want to do one per year. Could be risky, and probably not the way to do it at first. Probably announce these three movies, focus on these three. I think there's going to be more announcements of TV shows inside of these eras soon because they've set this up. But it very, very interesting as far as how it was all announced. And yeah, I think that the Mandalorian and how you're probably going to have Din in the big movie. You're going to have everybody in the big movie because we'll get into the Mandalorian stuff, we'll get into Andor, we'll get into all these things that came in. But the idea that James Mangold was kind of kept under wraps and nobody leaked it was pretty interesting. It's going to look very, very different, and it does seem like they're taking some of that stuff that Benioff and Weiss set up. But the other, as I mentioned, Sean Levy and Taika, apparently what they say in Star Wars News Edit, they haven't really been fully greenlit just yet, and there's no solid shape of the movies yet to have a public announcement, which is interesting because it seems like Kathleen Kennedy went away from doing what she normally did, and that's, Taika Waititi's a big hot director right now, and we love Taika, so his movie, and she said this, she's like, his movie's come out in 2023. What is it? I don't know. You just don't worry, his movie's coming out. And Taika's like, I don't even know what the hell it is. It's going to come out later. And it was just like, that doesn't sound promising at all. And clearly, they didn't have anything locked in. So somehow, they all sat down and said, okay, let's try to actually figure this out now. Because what is our biggest criticisms? It seems like I said, I've been the most critical of Kathleen Kennedy that I have been ever. And I still think it's time to go, to be honest. I think she sets up these movies, and I think it's time to go. But I'm giving credit where credit is due here. The way that these announcements were handled and the announcements themselves were good and were exciting and were promising. Now, they could all land as a big pile of crap. They could. They could also deliver and revitalize our faith in the Star Wars movies because the three directors that they have are solid. The stories are promising, and setting up different time periods and different times. Also a good way to revitalize because TV is carrying all of the burden right now. TV's carrying all of it, and you can see that it's starting to weigh on people. Mandalorian is an example where this season has not been as solid. There's a lot of great stuff, but there's a lot of stuff this last episode, in my opinion, just wasn't very good. But it seems like, from what they showed at the panel, that they're starting to focus in on the story that ultimately leads to Filoni's movie. So there is a way to turn this around, and it seems like these announcements definitely started that. Very curious to what you guys think about all this. Do you agree with this? Do you not agree with it? Do you think, look, I've been fooled just too many times, I'll believe it when it happens, which I probably will see a lot of those comments, and I cannot say that I blame you. I just feel, and maybe, like I said, maybe I'm being an optimist. I don't know, although I've been accused lately as being more of a pessimist when it comes to Star Wars. But I just feel in my heart of hearts that that these are going to stick. I feel like they have to stick. I feel like if they lose any of these, it's just gonna. There's been so much egg on the face. I don't think you can recover from the egg on the face on this one. It looks like the Chinoy one is about to happen soon. Now if it's Mangold or Filoni's movie next, we'll find out sooner than later. But I like the announcements. Curious what you guys think. Go ahead and let me know. I got to hear your thoughts. Now, before we move on, because we have a ton to cover. We have a ton to cover with. I'm going to talk about the Acolyte probably next, because the Acolyte is something I've been waiting for, and the announcement of what they showed, super promising. So before we get into that, I want to tell you guys about Mint Mobile. So happy to be with Mint Mobile, and let me tell you a little about them. Here we go. At this point, you know Mint Mobile. Everybody knows Mint Mobile. They've been catching on, and there's a reason why. Because after years of the fine print contracts and everybody gets ripped off by the big wireless providers, if you learned anything at all, it's that there's always a catch. So I've been hearing about Mint Mobile forever. I've known about them during the SCN Live days, and then obviously they keep catching on and getting their name out there, and there's, again, a reason why. I heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, and you're like, yeah, okay, what's the catch? But after you really get to talk to them and understand them, it makes sense. There's no catch. There's no catch, literally. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they are the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and they pass those sweet savings directly to you. So that was the thing that when I had heard about it, I had done it, and I continue to do it, and there's a reason why that it's catching on, because it's a very smart system. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I know it's nuts to hear it, but it's $15 a month. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying one for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless services starting at just $15 a month. So if you want to get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/thing. That's mintmobile.com/thing. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month. mintmobile.com/thing. Once again, thank you to our friends over at Mint Mobile. Very excited to have them on board. Been fans of them for a long time. We're with them for with SCN Live. They're back as a sponsor. So there's a reason they're in the news as much as they are. Please check them out. It helps the show. It'll help yourself. It'll help your wallet. So check it out. The link is in the description. All right, let's move on. And as I mentioned, I want to get to the Acolyte. Got to talk about the Acolyte. All right, the Acolyte. And this comes in from Star Wars Newsnet. Expectations for the upcoming series Acolyte, set at the tail end of the High Republic era, are through the roof. And Star Wars Celebration London gave more reasons to be excited for it. New details have been revealed during the panel, and there's a brand new logo that came out for it. But Kathleen Kennedy said that she's seen 4 episodes already, and she was blown away. Now, when pitching the Acolyte, Leslie Headland said it's Frozen meets Kill Bill. The other thing that she walked on stage with Wookiee Jedi Master Kel Naka, played by Joonas Suotamo, who of course played Chewbacca in Solo, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. That's amazing. He's going to be playing a Jedi Wookiee. We've seen Jedi Wookiees before. Now, there was footage of the Acolyte that was played in the room for the attendees. According to Empire Magazine, there were some exciting bits of scenes shown. This is what they said. They said this is what Empire Magazine said for the Acolyte. They said it looks incredible. There's Jedi everywhere, lightsabers galore. It is a darker, epic, Andor-like tone. We saw Padawans, plenty of aliens, and a jaw-dropping martial arts force fight between Carrie-Anne Moss and Amanda Stenberg's characters. In addition to these details, we learned that the footage also included High Republic costumes, which comes as no surprise because that's where the era takes place. It's the first time we'll be seeing such elements come to life on screen. The footage included a wide variety of aliens, Nemodians. More importantly, they showed the Carrie-Anne Moss fight. And Amanda Stenberg plays the lead role in The Acolyte, a mystery thriller set roughly 100 years before The Phantom Menace, which will explore the dark side of the Force and how the Jedi were blindsided by an emerging threat in the lead up to the events of the Skywalker saga. So one of the main things also that they said is that this is in the perspective of the villains. This is something we were hoping for, that we were speculating, that we didn't know if Disney would and Lucasfilm would have the cojones to do it. But it looks like they are. Unbelievable. So I love this. I've told you guys that this is my most highly anticipated, and the Mangold one is getting up there now as far as movies go because of the era, of where it takes place, and the idea of the Sith threat building. The question of why, how. Are they going to set up other things inside of it? Other potential, is Acolyte more than season 1? Is it a season 2? Are there more spinoffs inside of that? Like the idea, I mean, when you look at like Russian Doll and the way that Leslie Headland has set things up, it's not surprising, and it's also refreshing to hear that it's more of a kind of Andor type feel, which is where they should go if they're going to play with this type of idea. And the fact that we're going to see a Wookiee Jedi, we've seen a Wookiee Jedi before, obviously, and whether it was in Rebels or in Bad Batch, and we've seen it before, but now we get to see it, when back in this High Republic era. Now, you're probably going to see Yoda. you would assume they probably didn't. They probably saved them and didn't show up. But you would assume that you're going to see Yoda. Yoda was only what 800 or 750 years old at this point, so you should see him. Otherwise, where the hell is he? It would make sense, and they hope they get Frank Oz back to play him. But this is exciting, and also I think they also said that it's coming out in summer of 2024. No, that's Andor. They just said 2024 for Acolyte. I don't think they gave a full release date for it, but this is a good setup as we lead up to our first movie in 2025. Now, granted, different eras and stuff, but the idea that we got there, we got to the Acolyte, and we finally got stuff. Remember, my biggest concern with the Acolyte is that last Star Wars Celebration, they didn't talk about it at all on any of the panels. They announced Amanda Stenberg on the press line of some other press line at Comic-Con. They didn't mention it at D23, and then they went into production, obviously, and now they showed the teaser, and as we speculated for this, it was the first time that we had, from the stuff, the predictions and stuff that we talked about, that we were pretty much on point this year of the things that we thought that they should show and that they did show and that they should announce, and there were some surprises and all that. So this was, as far as news goes, again, credit where credit is due. They delivered, and this is just day one. They delivered. They delivered with the Acolyte, and I haven't seen the footage, but from what I heard and what you're hearing, the tone, if the tone is similar to Andor, and then accept what this could do, if the tone is similar to Andor, for the people who didn't like Andor because there wasn't enough pew-pew and there wasn't enough lightsabers and there wasn't enough Jedi and those things, this might win them over inside of that tone and inside the political stuff. But like, one of the biggest, for me, critiques on Mandalorian this year is that they haven't dove deep enough into character and dialogue and conversation. They've relied too much on spectacle and adventure, which I think a blend of the both is what made that show really special in the first two seasons. And I think that what Andor did was really dive into intellectual Star Wars. And I think that if Acolyte can be a blend of that, then it's got a lot of potential. And the fingers are crossed for that one. So very curious for you guys. Were you excited for Acolyte? Are you more excited after hearing about what it's going to be, the fact that Joonas is playing a Jedi, the idea that we're focusing on the villain, the comparison between like Frozen meets, it looks like it's going to be Amanda Stenberg and Daphne Keane, who are going to be probably the Frozen, I would assume the Frozen comparison, if I was to guess. One of them probably pairs off and goes to the dark side, is what I would assume, and then it's trying to get them back, and it leads into this whole thing. So that's what I would assume, and that sounds like, and meets Kill Bill. I mean, come on, Kill Bill's one of my favorite Tarantino movies all time, 1 and 2. So great references, great ideas behind it. Very curious to hear what you guys think. Let me know for sure. All right, before we move on to the other things, we got Ahsoka to talk about, we got Mandalorian to talk about, we got Skeleton Crew to talk about, we got all these things to talk about. I want to tell you guys about Sunday Lawn Care and Athletic Greens. It's been cold here. It's been cold, but it's starting to get warm. It's right around the corner. And I like hanging out with my kids and my wife in the back and with the yard, and it's one of my favorite times in spring. And Sunday Lawn Care makes it so much easier. If you guys love spring, you got to figure out, how do I take care of my yard? Everybody's been at the store going, what do I do? How do I start? Sunday Lawn Care makes it easy. Sunday is everything that you need to get the lawn that you dreamed of. So if you go this spring, you go and head on over to getsunday.com/bigthing and you enter your address, you get a customized plan created just for your lawn. There's no trips to the store or hauling heavy bags, since they ship straight to your home. You just need a hose to apply Sunday. That's all you need. You can fertilize your whole lawn in less time than it takes to watch an episode of your favorite TV show. Sunday is easy and affordable. Some lawn care services cost more than $1,500 a year, but Sunday's full season plan starts at just $109. Sunday is now offering our listeners 20% off. Full season plans at just $109, and you can get 20% off, but you got to use that code getsunday.com/bigthing at checkout. 20% off your custom plan at getsunday.com/bigthing. Don't be confused anymore. Don't stand at the counter and the shelves looking at everything. Just get Sunday. GetSunday.com/big thing. Athletic Greens, baby. AG1. You guys know I talk about them all of the time. For me, it's the same stuff I've been telling you. I wanted better gut health. I wanted increased energy. I wanted immune system support. I wanted all of it. I'm not a big vitamins guy. I didn't like taking all those pills and stuff. I just wanted one. You take it, I put it in a water bottle, I shake it up in the morning, and I'm good to go. It's not very easy for me to keep up with that supplement routine that comes with a bunch of different products. It's like you got to do this, you got to do that. You just take everything in one shot. Helps me better with energy. It helps me better in general. I think it helped me to recover, to be honest with you. Why take a bunch of different things when you can just mix one scoop of powder and water once a day? It's that easy. I love it. It's just part of my daily habit now. If you're looking for an easier way to take supplements, Athletic Greens AG1 is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. You got to go to athleticgreens.com/big thing. That is athleticgreens.com/big thing. Check it out. You guys know that I love it. You guys, I've seen so many people telling me that they've signed up and they're loving AG1. Continue to do so. Tell me after you sign up, let me know. Use that code, athleticgreens.com/big thing. All right. Thank you to our friends over at Sunday Lawn Care and Athletic Greens. Very, very happy to have them on board. And we're excited to be working with them. And as I said beforehand, if you guys are able to, it helps out the show tremendously. It will help you guys out. I can't tell you how many people have told me how much they love Athletic Greens. And I had somebody who reached out and said, hey, man, I did use that Sunday Lawn Care, and it has helped out my lawn. Use the codes, help out the show, and help yourself out. All right, let's move on. All right, let's talk Ahsoka, man. Let's talk Ahsoka. Because Ahsoka's going to have its own panel. And I know they're going to do exactly what they did last year for Mandalorian. They're going to do for Ahsoka, and I think rightfully so, where they show it. They show a trailer to everybody that they release online, and then they show a more extended look at the show for exclusive for people who are there. So this big Ahsoka panel, I guarantee you, is going to have this like epic trailer that everyone's going to see, and we're going to get the details of it tomorrow when it comes out. And I think this is a good way to do this. This is how you reward the people who are there. And I think, again, as I want to say, because I went into, when Roxy said, is there anything FOMO-wise? And I said, no, I've just been the most disappointed in Lucasfilm leadership that I think I ever have been, because they just keep doing the same thing. They have this opportunity to really represent what they want to do, all their shows, all their movies, and do everything in one shot and give you all the tidbits of information and get you excited. And they drop the ball every year. They didn't this year. The day one, it's only day one, but they delivered hard on day one. And you got to give props, because not only did they deliver with that movie slate, and that was at the end of the panel. They delivered big with this Ahsoka trailer. It was because the Ahsoka trailer was fantastic. And you got the first trailer at Star Wars Celebration and the confirmation that it does debut in August. Now, again, this is from Star Wars Newsnet. Fans were eagerly anticipating this one, and Star Wars Celebration London did not disappoint. The first ever Ahsoka trailer arrived, and the series was also announced to debut in August. So you can watch the trailer. Obviously, I did a full trailer reaction as well. So there's so much. They give a look at Sabine, played by Natasha Liu Bordizzo, and the characters are also played by Ray Stevenson and Ivana Sakno, which we had heard rumors about them playing kind of rogue Jedis working for Thrawn, and it's now confirmed they are the antagonists. Stevenson's character is then identified as Balin in the trailer's captions. Also confirmed is Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who we thought was going to be Hera. She's, of course, playing Hera, and she made an appearance on stage. And perhaps most shocking of all, they did show Grand Admiral Thrawn from the back, but we still got the idea of here he is, we have Thrawn, and they don't even know who's playing him yet. But that could change tomorrow at the Ahsoka panel. Also briefly shown is Diana Lee Encianto's Morgan Elizabeth, who Ahsoka dueled in Chapter 13 of The Mandalorian. Now, the other thing, Genevieve O'Reilly is back as Mon Mothma in hologram form In another snippet, Sabine is looking at a hologram of Ezra Bridger. The series is also said to revolve around the search for Ezra, but given this is the first trailer, Ahsoka seems to be in a lot more. Given this is the first trailer, Ahsoka seems to have a lot more in store. So there is also Aman Esfandi, who is the man reported to be behind Ezra, took to Twitter and shared his excitement of it. They showed the first poster for it as well, and they really hyped it up. They brought out Sabine, and there's a lot of lightsaber action, and Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy came out there, and they said there was this whole. They wanted to make sure that they were doing what George Lucas always wanted to do. Man, this trailer looks great, and I think that this is, to me, I wonder if Filoni kind of pulled back a little bit on Mandalorian because he kind of had to for developing this show. Ahsoka's his baby. We know Ahsoka is his baby. So Ahsoka is his creation. Rebels was his thing. This is not only now a continuation of Rebels, this is now a big lead up to his movie now. So the stakes are higher for Dave Filoni than they have ever been. And you can tell inside of this trailer, all of the philosophies of the stuff that George Lucas came about with the Force it's gonna be in this show. There's going to be different directors on this show. There's going to be different. We're going to have a lot of different people who are directing, but we're going to have the showrunner and the overall creator of this show is Dave Filoni, which leads us to the events of what's going to happen. And you see the fact that we're playing in the unknown regions should answer that question. People going, well, wait a minute. This is right after Return of the Jedi, and there's other Jedi with lightsabers and stuff around. Like, how is that the case? That wasn't. I thought that Luke was the last one. The unknown regions. Remember, space is vast. The unknown regions are places that are not charted, so people could be. I mean, Grogu could be there if he wanted to. And well, where was Grogu during the new trilogy? Unknown regions, and they set that up, and that's in the books. I don't know if they're going to explore this, but in the books. That's where the First Order started to form because there was no way to track them. And you're like, well, where did they hide out all these equipment and everything? In the unknown regions. Thrawn is starting to build his forces and build out in the unknown regions. And I think that's really what we're going to explore here. And this looks pretty damn epic. And it looks like it could be a darker outcome in general. Ray Stevenson is amazing. And you already have it looks like he's essentially like the Vader to Thrawn, is what it seems like. And I think there's going to be a lot of disappointment for the crew. And I like that they didn't show Thrawn in this one. I think you're going to see him if you're at Star Wars Celebration. I think you're going to see him in the extended thing tomorrow. I think you're probably going to hear him talk, and you're probably going to get the. I think they're exactly right. I think that they're going to debut the actor tomorrow because otherwise. You can't. And this is the question that myself and Steph Sabra and Mike Kalinowski asked last year when we went to Celebration and we saw the Mandalorian thing. Like, well, they just showed the trailer. What are they going to do at the Mandalorian panel? And they did a lot at the Mandalorian panel. A lot of stuff that they didn't do, and they were able to do that. And it was one of the best panels. So Ahsoka's going to have a damn good panel, and they're going to show more than just that trailer. Filoni does this all the time. And it's a fun thing that he does. He's going to go, oh, I'll show you this trailer. Okay. Oh, you guys want to see? All right, I might have something more. Should I show? All right, I'll show something more. And he's going to show something more. And it's going to be this. He's quickly evolving into Lucas, by the way. But he's going to have this whole big epic trailer, and you're going to show Thrawn, and they're going to bring Thrawn out. If I was to guess, but Ahsoka really got people hyped up. And it's a good thing that they did because, as we said, Mandalorian the last episode didn't have everybody kind of getting too excited. But the panel for me, or the portion of the panel for Mandalorian got people talking. All right, so they had the cast and the crew of Mandalorian taking the stage at Star Wars Celebration, and there were several interesting details as well as announced live fan screening during Celebration for Chapter 23, which is going to be on Disney Plus next weekend. Rick Famuyiwa will be doing both of those, the next two episodes, and he's going to be closing it out. there was a behind-the-scenes photo of Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Rick Famuyiwa, Doug Chang, Deborah Chow, and more that they showed on the stage. Here is that picture. So they showed that, and that was, of course, that big scene that they had at the bar. And then they showed the poster of the new poster that they debuted overall. And then, obviously, there was the Mandalorian screening that they announced. Now, there's going to be some particular spoilers from what they said was going to happen. So if you don't want to know anything about next week, then again, look at the time codes here and skip ahead. But I'm going to talk about what they talked about. As I said, they confirmed that Rick Famuyiwa directed the final 2 episodes of season 3. This was reported, but it's good to be reminded. And given the setup that he established the start of the season, it's clear that chapters 23 and 24 are going to tie everything together, and they wanted to continue. They wanted to continue having the same director vision behind all of them. So this is where the spoiler for chapter 23 comes in. So if you don't want to hear anything for potentially next week at all, because they showed some stuff for it, then skip ahead. Okay, you've been warned. The celebration audience was shown the opening of The Mandalorian Episode 7, and it featured the return of Moff Gideon. He's not happy that Bo-Katan has united the Mandalorians, and he pledges to deal with them. Grand Admiral Thrawn's imminent return is discussed. Luke Skywalker was also discussed by name. It's not a huge surprise that Moff Gideon shows up in the final 2, as he was confirmed to be in the season, so we know he had to shoot up sooner or later. It definitely adds more stakes to Bo-Katan and the Armorer's goal of retaking Mandalore. If they have to confront Moff Gideon and whatever forces he's amassed, no specific details on whether we see Thrawn, but it's clear we're not too far away from his reveal. There's a lot. This, again, is... I'm wondering how much it was coordinated, and I would assume a lot, of announcing Filoni's movie, announcing the timeline, announcing the setup, and getting people excited for Ahsoka by announcing Thrawn. I don't necessarily think that you should see him. I think you should hear about him, but who knows how they're going to do it. I'm hoping, and I know that you guys are tired of hearing me say this, but it is relevant, especially after... a lot of these episodes have not tied the plot together. These next 2 episodes need to be long. 45 minutes at a minimum. An hour would be ideal. An hour for the next 2 episodes would be ideal. It would give us enough time, and it wouldn't feel rushed. If it pops up and then 7 is 33 minutes and 8 is 35 minutes, that's a bummer, because all you're going to do is really focus on the action, and you're not going to focus enough on building out story and content. But fingers crossed that they're going to actually spend a little bit more time developing these things, because they could bring it. Or if these last 2 episodes are incredible, even the naysayers and I don't just mean the people who, like myself, who didn't love the last episode. I've generally thought a lot of the stuff inside of this season has been fun. I just think that they haven't really focused on the story enough. And when they do, the stuff that they focus on inside of the story is working. So if 7 and 8 really focus in on the story and then tie into the grand story, I guess pun intended, then it really could deliver. It really could deliver. So, and it also is not carrying the weight. Mandalorian has been carrying the weight of Star Wars for the last few years. This is the first time at a Star Wars celebration it didn't feel like it was carrying the weight, because not only did like the excitement for the movies, the excitement for the Acolyte, we have 2 other things to talk about also, like the excitement for the connectivity of all of it is really what I think has people excited again. So it's good that they don't have to carry all the weight. And if they can deliver on 7 and 8, I think that the audience will go, okay, you got me back. I'm curious. Let's see where we go with this. But they got to deliver on 7 and 8. If 7 and 8 don't deliver, the Mandalorian's going to start to be in a little bit of trouble, I think. And they're going to need to reform, revamp. Now, here's the other thing before we move into both Skeleton Crew and Andor. So I had heard a report the other day that I said, I don't know how true it is or not, but it's just curious because this type of thing keeps happening. And the report was that Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy had a major falling out, and that Kathleen Kennedy was the reason why they reunited in that Grogu and Din reunited in Boba Fett, and Favreau didn't want to do it, and there were big arguments behind it, and he didn't want her to be as involved, and she was over his shoulder, and they got into it. He almost left the project, and all of that. And I had seen that and commented on it. That I don't know if it's true, but it just seems like it's happened before, that I wouldn't be too surprised. And people are commenting back and forth to me going, well, you don't know if that's true or not. I literally said, I don't know if it's true. I'm just saying it could be. And then yesterday, inside that same report, that Jeff Snyder said that he had heard that Dave Filoni is directing a Star Wars movie, and then that turned out to be true. Snyder also said that he had heard that same very report. Now, I don't know if he had heard those rumblings before, because on Roca and his show, it seemed as if they thought they were reporting that particular story for the first time, and it had been out there. But it was Snyder, so people took it a little bit more serious, because Snyder is Snyder, and he does his research and he gets things done. But the fact that he also reported that same story with the same details makes me think, where there's smoke, there's fire. So the question is, has Kathleen Kennedy been able to pull back a little bit, done what we hoped that she would do, where trust in the creative, where Filoni and a few other people go, hey, let's pretend this storyline, because I can't, and maybe I'm wrong, but I can't imagine that Kathleen Kennedy's going, hey, we should really start to explore the old Republic and the formation and doing all this stuff. I think it's more so of like, hey, we have this idea, Kathy, where we want to explore this timeline. We are confident in it. Let us explore it. And she's like, okay, I'm going to stop being as hands-on, because you guys know this stuff a little bit more than I do, but I'm going to trust in it, because that's my job, is to trust in my creators, and I'm going to finally do that. And I could be super optimistic on this, and maybe that last battle with Favreau, if it indeed did happen, was the last straw for her going, all right, I gotta, maybe I should listen. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But nonetheless, it wasn't over yet. There was more. Andor. I'm going to talk about Andor next. Andor Season 2, very, very hyped, because for people who really watched it and dug into it, you cannot argue that it is the best written show, best written Star Wars material since Empire Strikes Back. I said that Diego Luna when he was sitting in this very studio. And there is no doubt that more people who started to watch it started to understand this was more, and it played more like an HBO show than it did a Disney Plus show. And so there was way more hype when they came out to talk about Season 2. Now, Andor was the first one to come out. Andor Season 2 was the first one to come out. Diego Luna came out, Tony Gilroy came out, Adria Arjona came out, Denise Go, Andy Serkis, Genevieve O'Reilly, Kyle Soiler, Joplin Siptane, and B2, a.k.a. Pissbot. They were all in attendance, and Gilroy expressed that the crew is currently deep into production, with the expectations to wrap in August and to air in August of 2024. So if I was to guess, I'm going to guess that Acolyte debuts first. I'm going to say the Acolyte hits. Now, wait a minute. You got to think about this. I might be wrong as I say this, but Skeleton Crew, which we'll talk about after this, Skeleton Crew is going to debut in, I would say, if Ahsoka's August to the end of September, I would guess that Skeleton Crew is going to hit somewhere in the November, December area, playing into what they've done before with like Boba Fett and Mandalorian, playing into like January. So Acolyte could be in March or April, could be, because you essentially get three shows, the end of Skeleton Crew, Acolyte, and Andor. Or they do Skeleton Crew, it ends in January, February area, and then they wait until August for Andor, and then Acolyte plays at the end of the year. I happen to think that Acolyte's going to come first, a little earlier in the year, and then play into Andor. But nonetheless, Andor comes out And Gilroy said, if you know your ending, it helps. We know where we're going. You know what you have to deliver emotionally and what the story has to do. It's a decision born of survival, but it's good for us creatively, which makes a lot of sense. They already have this series finale shot in Rogue One. It's already shot. So Rogue One is going to be so elevated from this series once you get there. Now, here's some of the stuff. Again, these are spoilers for season 1 of Andor if you haven't seen it. More importantly, they gave attendees a first look at season 2. According to Variety, the footage revealed at the event showed Mon Mothma trying to rally a rebellion, and Cyril also seems to have a bigger role in the show this time around. Cassian Andor was shown with a new hairdo. Season 2 introduces a number of new characters as well. And they showed Mon Mothma attempting to rally a rebellion, means that she's probably going to be the Mon Mothma that we know and start to play in. I'm sure you're going to see Jimmy Smits and all that. It's not surprising that Cyril has a larger role given the cliffhanger at season 1, where he rescued Dedra from the anti-imperial protests on Ferrix. So they also have the K2SO is going to debut. Now the question is, how are they going to debut him? Are they going to debut him through the canon thing? We'll see. Probably not. But they didn't say whether or not K2SO appeared in any of the footage. But we'll update this space if any information drops, as what Star Wars News Net says. But no, it seems like everybody's from the main cast is gonna come back. But coming back this quick, they to get back in August, that's going to be exciting. I think season 2 of Andor does significantly better, obviously, than season 1 because the initial when it first drops, because I think people were like, you're coming off of Boba Fett, you're coming off a disappointing Obi-Wan series, and people are going, all right, I don't know, Andor, I'm not really hyped up about this. And then everybody starts raving about it. And I think I heard a lot of people going back, and I can't even tell you how many texts I got from people who were like casual Star Wars fans going, is this Andor thing any good? I didn't really like that Obi-Wan series. And I said, go and check out this show. This is a very well-written show. My buddy Fred, Dorina, who is just over Star Wars, loved Andor, right? And I think that's why season 2 is going to have a significant return. And I'm excited. And he's right. We know where it ends, but how do you lead up to that? And what kind of loss will you get leading to that? Because people are like, well, I already know the ending. Why do I care? I don't know what happens to Adriana Arjona. I don't know what happens to a lot of these characters inside of it. They didn't show that in Rogue One. There's stuff that's going to happen in the emotional journey to get to this series finale. So yeah, I'm pretty pumped for it. And I love that they're using Genevieve O'Reilly more. And then I guess I'll end with this. Skeleton Crew. This is they showed a first look of it. This is something that I've been excited about because I'm a big John Watts guy, and The Old Man is a show that was just so good. And we talked about this at Star Wars Celebration, myself and Steph and Mike. We were at the hotel afterwards and we saw him and we started talking to him about it, and he essentially said this is like the Goonies meets like Stranger Things, and it's got like a very serious tone, but it also, just because a kid's in it doesn't mean that it's doesn't mean it's just gonna be a kid's show, is what he said to us. And it's exactly what they said on this panel. They said, again, this is from Star Wars Newsnet. They said, the mystery is no more. Lucasfilm has finally shared a first look at the upcoming Star Wars Skeleton Crew series during their studio showcase panel at Star Wars Celebration London. First, Dave Filoni described the show as a story about a group of kids in the Star Wars galaxy who go on an adventure that is more than they can handle. Now, this is obviously going to play into the whole Filoni-Favreau universe and probably lands them in the unknown regions, you would assume. So John Watts pitched the series to Favreau during the production of Spider-Man Far From Home. And from Far From Home, even though the kids were in those movies, they weren't necessarily kids' films, said Kathleen Kennedy of Amblin, confirming they're indeed going for the same vibe with Skeleton Crew. The full lineup of directors was revealed. Now, we knew John Watts was going to direct it. Now, they have David Lowery, the Daniels, which we heard, and Jake Schreier, but the Mandalorian veterans Bryce Dallas Howard and Lee Isaac Chung have also joined the crew. Jude Law also showed up to discuss the show, and he was very excited about it. It looks like he's going to play either a rogue Jedi or a Force user at some point. He's going to be kind of the mentor for the kids. And they brought a lot of the kids out there for sure, and they were confirmed. And then they also confirmed that Kerry Condon from the Banshees of Inisherin also has a role in the show. So they showed a little bit more. They showed a first look, and they didn't reveal too much inside of the look itself. But people saw the first exclusive trailer, and people were describing it as the Goonies meets Star Wars. And they said, and inside the line, one of the lines says, "Don't you ever want to do anything exciting?" There's a school and suburbs pirates, including Vane from the Mandalorian, and it appears that Jude Law is a Jedi hiding out, or at least a Force-sensitive refugee. So there's more to come for this one. And like I said, I think this is going to start to tie into the big Filoni reveal and all that, and we're probably going to get some kind of tease from Ahsoka, you would assume, if they want to set it up to get people to watch it, because Skeleton Crew is not, because even, like, you know, when you say Boba Fett, when you say Obi-Wan, I mean, hell, when you say Andor, if you know Star Wars well enough, Skeleton Crew, if you're not really paying attention and you're a casual fan, and you just say Skeleton Crew, people are like, what the hell's that? It doesn't have any Star Wars type related in it. So they're going to have to really sell it. They're going to really have to sell this show. This is going to be the tougher one to get people to watch, but if they can push people towards from Ahsoka into it, then it could work. And you've got a good cast. You got Jude Law, bringing Kerry Condon in as well. And then we've got the tone, which is going to be interesting. And like I said earlier, it seems as if this will debut. I don't think they said when. It just said later this year is when it's coming out. But I would assume they're going to do the same thing they did with Mandalorian and Boba Fett, put it out in December, let it carry into 2024. So they essentially have 3 series in 2024 with the Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, and Andor season 2. Yeah, this one needs a trailer for people outside of the Star Wars Celebration audience to get excited about, because people are, if you haven't seen it, you're just like, I don't know if I'm going to be excited about it yet, because I haven't seen the tone, I haven't seen the story, and I think that they're aware of that. And obviously, you'll probably see a trailer for this closer to the August, like somewhere in the summertime, you'll see a trailer. I think this now, if it's this trailer or if it's a different trailer, but the trailer that they release has to get people pumped up. Now, I obviously want to see that Acolyte trailer, but I think you get the Skeleton Crew trailer first, is what I would assume. But man, there was a lot today. There was a lot. And this is day one. And I said it, it's the 5th time I'm going to say it. Credit where credit is due. Now, when you go back to the London 2016 Star Wars Celebration, they didn't know what they were doing. Now, people who were the attendees had a good time because it was Star Wars Celebration. But as far as news, it was a dud. The Rogue One wasn't even the same movie that they were going to show, and they showed some trailer that they didn't even release. The biggest thing was Thrawn from Rebels. That was the biggest reveal. But it was a dud. And that was over the course of days. Day one, they hit you with a lot. So props to them, because this was the most that they delivered. What did you guys think? Did you like this day one reveal? What were your favorites? What were your ideas? Please comment. Not only does it help the algorithm, and when you click like, it helps the algorithm, but I want to know your thoughts. I want to get the idea of where people are, because I've seen a lot of people being skeptical after the last episode of Mandalorian, and some people, silly people, the Star Wars is dead. No, it's not. Star Wars has lost excitement. I'll give you that. Star Wars is dead? Clearly not. People just are dramatic. But losing excitement, losing your passion for it, I've seen that. Did anything inside of this restore your hope? And I can also see comments saying, look, the announcements were good. There's no doubt about it. I just don't have the confidence, because of all of the people that they have lost in the past, that have left the projects, have been fired from the projects. I ain't going to believe it until I see it. And I don't think that is an unfair statement to make. So if you feel like writing that in the comments, please do it. Please click like. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Really fun to talk about, and I'm excited. And like I said, Capes and Cowls is going to air twice. Once on Monday, because we taped an episode for today. But obviously, I just think this is more relevant to talk about today. And then on Monday, we'll have the episode that we shot. And then Friday, the guys will be back to do another episode of Capes and Cowls. So you'll get Capes and Cowls twice next week. Thank you guys so much. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that button. Help us out. Get us to 100. And once again, If you can be in Connecticut on June 24th, get those tickets. If you're going to be June 23rd in Manhattan, but most importantly, right now, please, if you're anywhere near the Los Angeles area and you can be here, this will support the live show. We need to sell this show out. We have to get 170 tickets. We need to sell them all, and we need you guys to be there. So if you can get there, thekristianharloff.com. Join us, please. Link is in the description. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me here again. Really fun show. I really appreciate you being here with me. This was the big thing. Star Wars Celebration. Leave those comments. Hit that like button. We got to talk. All right. Peace, everybody.